The snow was falling so hard it erased the world. White swallowed the trees. White swallowed the sky. White swallowed the footprints of everything that had tried to survive the night. And buried in that endless silence, three shapes trembled beneath the drifting snow, barely breathing, barely alive. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that even the strongest warriors can have the softest hearts, take a moment right now to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel. Because this story is about to remind you what humanity truly looks like. Chief Petty Officer Ethan Cole had faced war zones where the air itself felt like a loaded weapon. As a Navy SEAL, he had trained his body to endure the unendurable and his mind to stay calm when chaos screamed in his ears. He had crawled through deserts, swum through black oceans at night, and carried wounded brothers across enemy fire. But nothing in his training prepared him for the kind of silence he encountered that morning in the frozen forest. Ethan was home on leave in a remote mountain town, a place of tall pines and long winters. The kind of place where snow piled high enough to swallow fences and the air tasted sharp enough to cut your lungs. He had gone out early, just after dawn, to clear his thoughts. Sleep had not come easily since his last deployment. It rarely did anymore. The forest was the only place where his heartbeat slowed without effort. He noticed the first shape by accident. A slight mound in the snow near a fallen log. Too symmetrical to be natural. Too still to be alive. He stepped closer, boots crunching through the powder, breath forming clouds in the cold. Then he saw it, the tip of a black ear poking through white. His chest tightened. He dropped to his knees without thinking, gloved hands tearing away snow. Beneath the surface was a German shepherd, its fur stiff with frost, eyes half closed, body so thin he could feel the bones under his fingers. The dog's chest moved faintly, barely rising. Then he saw the others. Two more shepherds, pressed together as if they had tried to share warmth. Snow had nearly covered them completely. Their collars were still around their necks, but no tags. No leads. No sign of an owner. 3 lives abandoned to freeze. Ethan had seen men left behind in places no one should be left. The sight ignited something in him, not anger first, but recognition. These weren't just animals. They were soldiers in a different uniform. Loyal. Protective. Faithful to the end. And they were dying. He shrugged off his heavy jacket and wrapped it around the smallest one, lifting it carefully. The dog was limp, head falling against his arm. He scooped the second with his other arm, then dragged the third closer, whispering steady reassurances under his breath. His military calm kicked in. Assess. Prioritize. Move. The cabin was nearly half a mile away. Through waist-deep snow, carrying dead weight that felt frighteningly light. Each step burned his thighs. Snow slipped into his boots. His breath came in sharp bursts. He could feel the smallest dog's heartbeat against his chest, faint, irregular. Not on my watch, he thought. The cabin door burst open under his shoulder. Warm air from the wood stove met frostbitten fur. He laid them down near the fire, quickly grabbing blankets, towels, anything dry. He remembered field survival training, how to warm someone without shocking the body. Gradual heat. Gentle friction. Patience. He worked on them for hours. Rubbing their limbs. Melting ice from their paws. Feeding them small drops of warm water with a spoon. At one point, he thought the smallest one had stopped breathing. His stomach dropped. He pressed 2 fingers gently against its ribs, counting seconds that felt like lifetimes. Then, a shallow inhale. Ethan exhaled for the first time in minutes. He called the only veterinarian in town, a woman named Dr. Harper who had known Ethan since he was a teenager climbing trees behind her clinic. She arrived in her old pickup truck, chains crunching over ice, medical bag in hand. When she saw the dogs, her expression shifted from professional focus to quiet heartbreak. "They wouldn't have lasted another hour out there," she said softly. Hypothermia. Severe malnourishment. Dehydration. Early frostbite on their paws and ears. But somehow, miraculously, no broken bones. No visible trauma beyond neglect. "Someone left them," Ethan said, his jaw tightening. Dr. Harper didn't disagree. The next few days were a blur of care and worry. Ethan postponed his return date to base without hesitation. Paperwork could wait. Lives could not. He set alarms through the night to check their temperatures. He hand-fed them small portions every few hours. He slept on the floor beside them, waking at every small whimper. Slowly, strength returned. The largest shepherd was the first to lift his head on his own. His eyes, deep brown and cautious, followed Ethan across the room. The middle one tried to stand and collapsed, then tried again. The smallest, wrapped in layers of blankets, stayed closest to Ethan's side, as if instinctively understanding who had pulled them back from the edge. He named them without thinking. Valor. Ghost. Hope. Because that's what they represented. Word spread through the small town faster than the snowplows could clear the roads. People dropped off bags of dog food, old blankets, toys, even donations for veterinary bills. Children drew pictures of the snow heroes. The story of the Navy SEAL who found 3 dying dogs in a blizzard traveled beyond the mountains, shared on social media, picked up by local news. But what the headlines didn't show were the quiet moments. The first time Valor wagged his tail. The first time Ghost barked, a low uncertain sound as if testing whether he was allowed to exist loudly again. The first time Hope rested her head on Ethan's knee and fell asleep without trembling. Healing was not linear. There were setbacks. One night, Hope developed an infection in her frostbitten paw. Ethan sat in the clinic long after closing hours while Dr. Harper administered antibiotics. He felt that old helplessness creep in, the same feeling he had when medevac helicopters were minutes too late overseas. But this time, he could stay. He could fight. Weeks passed. Muscle filled out their frames. Their coats regained shine. They began to run in the yard behind the cabin, bounding through snow not as victims of it, but as conquerors of it. Ethan trained with them gently at first. Simple commands. Sit. Stay. Come. It amazed him how quickly they responded, as if discipline had once been part of their lives. These weren't stray dogs born wild. They had known structure. They had known purpose. And perhaps that made the abandonment worse. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the pines in a blaze of orange and pink, Ethan sat on the porch watching the 3 shepherds chase each other. His chest felt full in a way it hadn't in years. He realized something quietly powerful. He had rescued them. But they had rescued him too. The nightmares that once jolted him awake every night had begun to fade. The constant edge in his posture had softened. Where silence once felt heavy, it now felt peaceful. The rhythm of paws against wooden floors, the weight of a dog leaning against his leg, the responsibility of caring for something fragile, it grounded him in ways therapy alone never had. A month after the rescue, an envelope arrived at his cabin. No return address. Inside was a short note, unsigned. It claimed the dogs had belonged to a man who had lost his job, his home, and eventually his will to keep going. He had believed abandoning them in the forest would give them a chance to survive on their own. Ethan read the words twice, jaw tight. He didn't feel hatred. He felt sadness. Because giving up is contagious. But so is hope. Instead of dwelling on the cruelty, Ethan made a decision that would change everything. He began working with Dr. Harper to create a small rescue program for abandoned working dogs, especially German Shepherds, Belgian Malinois, and other breeds often purchased for status but discarded when life became inconvenient. He used his connections in the military community to spread awareness about responsible ownership and the emotional intelligence of these animals. Valor, Ghost, and Hope became ambassadors of resilience. At community events, children lined up to pet them. Veterans knelt quietly beside them, sometimes with tears in their eyes. The dogs seemed to sense pain in others, offering silent comfort with a nudge of the nose or a steady gaze. One winter afternoon, nearly a year after the blizzard, Ethan stood in the same forest clearing where he had found them. Snow fell again, softer this time. The world looked just as white, just as silent. But everything was different. The three shepherds stood beside him, strong and alert, their breath rising in steady clouds. They were no longer buried in snow. They were running through it. Ethan knelt, pressing a hand into the snow where he had first uncovered that frozen ear. He remembered the fear. The urgency. The fragile heartbeat against his chest. And he realized that sometimes, the bravest battles aren't fought with weapons. Sometimes they're fought with warmth. With patience. With staying when it would be easier to walk away. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that restore faith in humanity. And before we end, I have one special request. Comment the word hope below if you believe that no life is ever too far gone to be saved. Because somewhere tonight, beneath some kind of storm, there may be another heartbeat barely holding on. And maybe, just maybe, someone strong enough will hear it. Ethan rose to his feet as Valor barked joyfully, Ghost sprinted ahead, and Hope circled back to brush against his leg. The forest no longer felt empty. It felt alive. Three dogs once left to die had become living proof that compassion is stronger than cruelty, that second chances can rewrite endings, and that even warriors need something to protect in order to heal. The snow continued to fall. But this time, it did not bury life. It witnessed it.